Well, here we are. We're
Hi.
live. Yay. So, Heather, it is awesome to be here with you. And what I am hoping, we'll see, we may be the only two people here right now. But if you are here and you are watching us live, if you could just put in the chat, that would be great. I'm still trying to get a little familiar with this new platform because in the last one, we would see it on the side. And so
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that. So we're just hoping that people are here. And I want to thank everybody who is here. If you are here, put in the chat where you're coming to us from, like where are you located? And we will sort of try and get a gist of who is here. Um, but I want to thank Heather so much for taking time to answer some of the questions that I have today because I saw your post and I thought, oh my gosh, everybody gets stuck.
Yeah.
And and I myself have been saying I'm stuck in a rut in the work that I've been doing for years. And it's so easy to say, we need to take these steps to get out of our rut. But the reality is it's not so easy to do. And so I want to have sort of some conversations around that so that we can help people get out of
Yeah.
their rut. And whether they're a coach, because coaches get in ruts,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
or they're a job seeker, or they're not actively job seeking. We all get in ruts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna so let me give a formal introduction to who Heather is. Heather and I have met virtually, and we've been engaging with each other's a post for at least a year, maybe longer. What I love about Heather is that everything that she posts on LinkedIn is so actionable and so just important and easy. Not I don't ever want to say easy, but accomplishable.
Yeah.
So um, Heather has guided over 10,000 clients through career development and coaching. She's trained over 1,000 career coaches. She's got an amazing newsletter that I'm going to put a link to. But for many, many years, Heather has trained career coaches across private practice, in career services, workforce development, higher education, HR, talent acquisition. Your mission, Heather, is to help career professionals develop the confidence and skills they need to be partners and trusted partners to the clients they're serving during their career journeys. What did I miss? What do you want people to know about you that I didn't just explain?
Oh, it makes me all sound very tired or feel very tired listening to all that. Um, I mean, one takeaway, I think we'll talk about this as we go through our conversation today is, the workforce is ever changing. It's changing so fast now. It's sometimes can be super overwhelming. And, as the workforce changes, which is what we live, what we eat, what we breathe. I mean, this is our industry. It can just feel very daunting. And so, these principles that we'll talk to today can be applicable for ourselves, other coaches, for the clients that you serve. And so, don't look at it as just something that you can apply to your clients. You can apply it in your own life too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Let me ask. So I'm going to jump straight to the art. You wrote a post. Oh, I should put a link to it. If you get my newsletter, it was in it. But the basic gist of your wonderful article on LinkedIn was that the comfort zone is a quicksand, is a career quicksand. The more you struggle, the faster you sink. So you walk people through these five different things, five strategies to spark more courageous choices, right? And so let's, if we can for a second, I want you to sort of help people understand why you think people get stuck making a change? What are the reasons that you've heard?
Yeah. So I use this idea of the comfort zone being career quicksand because, well, first of all, if anybody knows me, they know I love metaphors. So using metaphors to explain anything is just very relatable and helps us understand and grasp the concepts that we're trying to apply to our clients' lives, to our own lives. So I looked at it as like, we all struggle with experiences, and change is difficult. Even if we're the type of people who love change, it's very difficult neurologically. As soon as we start thinking about the change process, our brain is like, no way, I'm not doing this. It's very it just resists this change, and it brings up these alarms, these stress hormones that we have. Even positive change gives this sense of disruption. And so the more that we move towards change, the more that the brain wants us to stay stuck, wants us to be in this quicksand. And so we're just trying to get out of it, but we're getting this pushback and this resistance. And so in terms of career pivots, the harder we struggle to grow, the stronger that our brain tries to shrink the small wins that we get. And I'll give you an example. My daughter wants to apply for this cashier job down the road, and so we took the dog for a walk a couple days ago, and we said we could grab an application, on our way down there. And within a mile from our house to the store, she had come up with a half a dozen reasons why she did not want this job anymore. But she had been talking about wanting to apply for a week or so. And it was that small time frame that she created all of these roadblocks in her mind that it was impossible for her to get this new position. So that's our brain keeping ourselves stuck.
Yeah. I mean, we all do that. We talk ourselves out of things. So one of the first things that you talk about, like one of the steps or strategies, is to design small experiments. And so what might that look like? What are some of the small experiments that you've helped coaches through, or your clients through?
Yeah. So in terms of small experiments, I think that if we test something out on a smaller scale, we're gonna be more apt to be able to grasp it, to be able to wrap our head around the fact, okay, this is doable in bigger increments. And this is why we have high school students do job shadows. This is why we have college students do internships before they go out into a full-time role. These small experiments, it's a way for us to take what we're doing, break it into smaller steps, create action, and action creates this movement, which helps us build this clarity that we're looking for. So, for example, like if somebody's interested, or if your client's interested in going back to school, but the whole process of going back for another degree feels really daunting, I might suggest taking a class or participating in some type of free learning experiment. And once you've realized that you can, own that and feel confident about it, then the next semester you can apply for, a full-time position, or, full-time residency within your school. The point is that you've done it on a small scale, you've tested it out, you've gotten some wins, and then you're able to say, like, okay, I'm ready for something bigger, big leagues, right?
Right. And do you find that makes it less daunting for people, or are some of the clients you've worked with and coaches that you've worked with, does that feel more doable?
Yeah, so I'm working with a career coach right now who she wants to create this like series of group workshops, and the in the past, the majority of her work has been one-on-one coaching. So she hasn't created a type of group workshop or delivered any type of group workshop series. And so she felt really stuck as she's, had this idea, but didn't know how to action any of it. And, so after we talked through it, she suggested that she create like a 45-minute workshop, and picking one of the topics that she sees most in her clients that she's working with. So the topic's familiar to her. It wasn't necessarily the content that she was worried about. It was more like, how do I create this? How do I action it? How do I present this? What is it going to look like? And so she went through a 45-minute webinar. She did it. She created it around something she felt confident with. And then she had those small steps that she could then apply to a workshop series. So she's in the process of developing that right now. But again, she went through something on a smaller scale, taught herself how to do it, realized that it was possible, and now feels much more confident and ready to move forward.
It's taking that first small step, right? Once you make that first small step, it doesn't feel so scary.
Yeah. I mean, the fear of change, I think, is one of the biggest reasons that we don't move forward, right? We're our brain is telling us not to do it. This fear of change is really, we give it more space and weight than it needs, than it deserves, quite honestly. And we sometimes choose to stay within these predictable discomforts rather than moving towards unpredictable comforts, but because we don't know. And so we tolerate a job we dislike rather than moving towards something that would be, more suitable for us. So, I think that we create bigger problems than what actually exists.
Well, and so that dovetails really well into the next sort of mini strategy or next strategy, which is to get specific about your fears and naming them. Why does that work? And let's talk about why that works.
Right. So this idea of naming, I mean, I think that many people have heard this term, naming it to tame it, right? And it goes back to, like, fear is sort of a fog that moves over us, and we have to try to take some type of forward movement to, like, release the fog, or to remove the fog from us. And if we name our fear, which, if you want to get scientific, is really speaking to our prefrontal cortex. We're speaking to the reasoning side of our brain. If we put a name to this fear, we're taking the control away from our amygdala, which is the fight or flight, and we're saying, look, this is what's happening, not everything else, right? This is what's happening. So a good example might be you're preparing for a presentation. You have a big presentation coming up, and as the presentation gets closer and closer, the fear becomes bigger, the anxiety becomes greater. So then other things within your life, like the to-do list that you have to do, becomes huge. The commitments within the community become really daunting and, taking of your time. So naming the fear, which is, I have to give this presentation and I'm nervous about it, is one way we can move forward with it. I have an exercise we could walk through if, that's something
that would be so helpful. Absolutely. Sometimes people just say, I'm afraid of failing, but is that really enough?
Right. No, you have to say, I'm afraid of failing at what and why. So if everybody wants to take a minute and, whether you do it on your phone or your computer, or you write down one specific fear that you have right now, something that's really bothering you right now. And it can be small or it can be big, but take the time to write down one specific fear. And the goal is to get it out of our heads, right? We're putting it on paper, we're putting it on our phones, we're getting it out of our heads. This is the naming part of what our fear busting exercise.
So the more specific, more specific I can be about naming that fear,
The
right? So
better.
I don't want to just say I'm afraid of dying, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Right. So
not
I'll use
specific.
my presentation example. So I have a big presentation coming up, and so I might write down, um, I have a really big presentation coming up, and I'm very nervous about it. So I've just named it. Doesn't have anything to do with the laundry or the community commitments that I have that are all feel really overwhelming. It's the presentation I have coming up, and I'm nervous about the presentation. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to do put some semblance of control around our fear. So, in this next part of your exercise, think about the fear that you wrote down and what part of this fear is within your control. So, identify, this is my fear. That was the naming it part. Now, what part of this fear is within my control? Right? So, in my presentation example, the part of the fear that's in my control is I can take time to prepare for this presentation. I have the control to do that. And if I take the time to prepare for the presentation, my fear could diminish because I'm fully prepared and I'm ready to show up, right? It might not minimize completely the fear that I have for this change process, but it's going to minimize it because I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to feel ready, or as ready as I can feel. So, what is one small action? Then the last part of the exercise is what is one small action you might do in, say, the next 24 hours to address this fear, right? This is the part of actioning it. So you're naming the fear, and then you're understanding that fear, you're shrinking it because you understand it, and then you're actioning it because you're putting one thing around it that you can move the needle on. So for me, with my presentation, I might say, like, I'm going to write down my talking points in the next 24 hours, and then I'm going to practice those talking points. So I'm actioning some way to start to minimize or reduce that fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I really like that, and I think that it's not just the single act of identifying and naming the fear. It is the follow up stuff that you walked us through with that exercise
Yeah.
that becomes really the change that we need.
Yeah, you have to take it a step further because naming it's one great thing, right? But then if you don't action something towards reducing it, then you're just going to walk around with that fear. So naming it's just the first part. You have to then shrink it and then do some type of action towards getting rid of it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to transition to the third point that you make about finding your reinvention squad. When people get stuck in a rut, sometimes they just need support around them, people that they can bounce ideas off of, or just somebody who's going to listen empathetically. What makes a great reinvention squad? Where does somebody find their reinvention squad?
Yeah, I was thinking about this recently. So my husband's a big NASCAR fan, and so I'm subjected to watching NASCAR frequently. And so I think about the reinvention squad as the pit crew. So if anybody knows anything about NASCAR, right, you have a pit crew. The race car driver has a pit crew, and everybody in the pit crew has a specific job to do, right? And if you're thinking about making some type of career change, having your reinvention squad or your pit crew around you is going to help move you from point A to point B. And so you think about different aspects of what you're going to need to in action some type of change, right? You're going to want somebody who's going to help you put things into perspective. So when, like we just mentioned, when the fear starts to really expand, who are you going to call on that's going to help you be like, look, you can do this, right? Let's put this into perspective. So thinking about walking through, showing somebody showing you that you have the capability to do this. That might be a mentor. That might be, I don't know, a former teacher, maybe a career coach, right? Somebody who can put the change process in perspective for you. And then you need somebody who is an accountability partner for you, someone who's going to be like, look, you said you were going to do this. It's now been 3 weeks. You haven't done a whole lot towards moving the needle. I had, and the accountability partner might be somebody that just is going to drop in every once in a while, or somebody that's you have systematically set up to help you. A couple of years ago, I was working on a book project, and I had another friend who was working on something similar, and we became each other's accountability partners. And what we did was every morning we would text each other, this is what I'm going to work on for the day. This is what she's going to work on for the day. And then the next day we would, and it was very simple. We would highlight, okay, this is what I worked on yesterday, and this is what I'm going to work on today. And we did that 5 days a week through the, the bulk of our projects. And it was just that action of having to simply know I had to check in with her very briefly over text every morning. That was like, if I don't do what I said I'm going to do, then I can't text her that I did it, right? So it's setting up those accountability measures for yourself. And then I think go ahead.
No, I've had people say, my spouse is my accountability and support. What do you feel? How do you feel about that? Or my partner, my spouse, my parent, my whatever.
Well, my husband's a firefighter. So, and my children have repeatedly told us that I have the most boring job in the history of the world compared to his. So you can't compete with that. Right. So, he is very supportive of me in terms of encouragement, but accountability, I'll start talking to him about this project I'm working on or this project I'm working on, and I'm putting him to sleep. He said that, if he ever had insomnia, he would read my dissertation. So he's very proud of me, and he appreciates all of the things that I do, but that's not his jam, right? That's not his role. So you have your reinvention squad could be different people. It's not necessarily one person that's going to, be that accountability, be that encouragement, and, be that like, hey, you can do this because you have the tools and resources that you put that into perspective for yourself. So if it's one person, which is great, not usually the case, or if it's many people, you just have to elicit their support, let them know what you're doing, and then make sure that they're there or available when you need them to be.
And that's the communication point, part. We really need to say, this is how you can help me. This is how I need you to help me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now the fourth strategy is to create that financial runway. And you said like money panic, the panicking over money kills good career moves.
Yeah.
How can we be smarter when it comes to creating that runway?
Yeah. So money panic's real. I mean, it's something that we as career coaches and have to deal with. These are conversations we have to have with our clients. And if we've been through any type of career transition ourselves, this becomes a real, very practical point that needs to be addressed. Money, a runway for money, it's different based on the person, right? And so my runway for financial stability might be somebody else's runway, might be different. And so when I think about creating this financial runway, I think about what do you need to do to create space for you to start moving forward. And sometimes it's having 6 months of savings. Sometimes it's creating a side hustle job for yourself. Sometimes it might be covering essentials for a few weeks. Sometimes it might be just committing to having a fallback plan in place. It's different for everybody. The point is creating something that gives yourself the space to start to think about this reinvention, or to start to think about your change, and then making those small steps to enact that change.
I have worked with a couple of clients who have told me, Hannah, I cannot do this job one more day. It is killing me. Mentally, I'm exhausted. I don't have energy to do anything outside of the workplace when I get home. And so I'm going to quit my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I absolutely understand that. But in that, that conversation is, do you have the financial resources to buy the time that you're going to need to find a new job?
Yeah. And we think about that because, our health is the most important thing that we can protect and take care of. And so, one of the questions I'll ask clients when they present a situation is quitting going to provide you with additional stress on top of what you feel now? Or is it going to create space for you to start making movement forward? I've worked with a client before who was in a similar situation that you mentioned, and they weren't able to move forward at all until they completely erased the toxic workplace that they had been in. I've had other clients be like, working on something on the side while I'm still in this job, which I know that I don't want to be in, gives me the fuel to move forward. And it might take longer, but I'm able to do it. So it's really about assessing your current situation and what you're able to within your capabilities to move forward with.
And so I think it's just so important for people to truly understand what the risk and reward of that decision is. I think sometimes people don't. I love the next tip that you provide, or the next strategy, which is to track evidence of growth. We get so hung up on the ultimate completion of our goals that we sometimes forget to rejoice and celebrate the small wins. So you talk about keeping a proof of progress journal. Talk about why that's important.
It's really interesting that you say it, that you present it in this way, because last night, my kids had school today. They started school for the first time. And last night was my seniors parent welcome event. And their advisor said, don't look so far down the road that you miss the excitement of the present day. And he's talking in terms of them applying for college and going through all this process, because their senior year is supposed to be memorable in monumental. So I love it, reminding me of his words when you say that. But as career coaches, we focus on very tangibles to help the client move forward. So your proof of progress journal could be just that, a journal highlighting some of your small wins, right? We talk about the compound effect, 1%, my shirt, 1% better every day, right? Equals in a long period of time, really recognizable wins. So how are you going to keep track of those wins? Is it updating your resume? Is it making a career portfolio? Is it writing down, your proof of win journal? Whatever it is for you that help you remember the progress that you're making, go for it. Because when you get to the point where you're stuck, and we will get stuck in the change process, it's inevitable. Look back at the wins that you've made to say, like, this is my momentum to keep moving forward.
Yeah, we need to always remind ourselves of the small wins and our successes, because our brain, you probably know this better than I, but our brain is trained to focus on the negative, right? Yeah. It doesn't look for the positive. And so it's up to us to record those things. All of those great, like those emails from clients. I love telling people to keep a brag book. When that's a great one, thank you so much for going above and beyond to help me solve this problem. I couldn't have done it without you. Like, that should be framed and on your wall. And too often we're just like, I was just doing my job.
I agree. We have to keep track of those small wins, because that's our motivation to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, out of the 5 different things that we talk about, which one do you think people are challenged by the most? What is hardest for people to do? What do they resist?
I would say it's probably the designing small experiments. It's that like that first step in making the change, right? Thinking about changing, planning for change, that's all very comfortable, right? It's like a warm blanket around us. Nobody knows that we're doing the change. We haven't actually moved on the change process. So it's like a secret, right? And once we enact that first change, it's exposure, right? We then have to be like, okay, I've committed to it and now people know.
Yeah.
And I've done something towards it. So now I have to hold myself accountable. I have to find people to help motivate me. I have to keep moving because then, right, I'm accountable for this. So I think probably enacting that first bit of change is, the hardest step. Once you get in it, you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're now at the half hour, and time went by so fast. For those of you that are watching this live or are watching the recording, the replay, I want you to commit to one small action that you can take.
Yeah, I would agree. Have them start ridiculously small. Like it doesn't have to be something big. It could be writing down one specific goal. It could be reaching out to one person in your network. It could be spending, I don't know, 15 minutes redesigning your LinkedIn tagline. Just start ridiculously small because that's going to give you the motivation to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I want to make sure people know about is Heather's newsletter, which I really love reading. Though it's got a heavy emphasis on career coaches, it still has great labor market information in it, and there's nuggets in there for all of us as we consider managing our careers. So Career in Progress, and the link to her newsletter is down below. You can definitely, if you don't already, follow Heather on LinkedIn. She's a regular poster there. There's always nuggets that you can take and put into play based on her stuff. So is there anything else you have coming up, Heather? I know that you offer some workshops and some courses. What do you want to let us know about?
Yeah, so I do post on LinkedIn every day, 7 a.m. Pretty religiously. So, and there is something there for everyone. I speak to career topics and across the board, and they are applicable for people looking for career change, looking for jobs, coaches that are working with clients who want to use some of these tools and techniques, on their population. So certainly that. I teach a career certification course for career coaches. So on the links that you've shared, you can grab that information for my next class that's coming up.
Yeah. Excellent. I want to thank you so much for being here with me. And I want to thank the people that were able to watch this live with us. Please reach out to Heather or comment on our posts on LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter. We all benefit when we learn from somebody awesome like you, Heather. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone.